Hey everybody, welcome to Law and Society. This is a quick Epstein update. So, the House overwhelmingly passed the Epstein bill the Epstein Transparency Act that would allow the Justice Department to release whatever information they have, the files that are related to Jeffrey Epstein and his dealings with various influential people who uh, are allegedly part of a child sex trafficking ring, and it passed nearly unanimously in the House. Speaker Johnson thought that it was going to be taken up by the Senate and they were going to add amendments to it and they were going to delay it somehow. But the Senate passed the House bill by unanimous consent without debate after Minority Leader Chuck Schumer put the resolution up for it to be a unanimous consent resolution. And so now the bill goes to Donald Trump, who said he was okay with releasing the Epstein files. So presumptively, he's going to sign this document today. And we're going to then direct Pam Bondi to release the files. Now, that's what theoretically should be happening. Mind you, Donald Trump does not need this directive from Congress to force the executive branch to release these files. Donald Trump is simply asking in this way for Congress to give its consent so that it has to follow a law which he signs, which is both unanimous, near unanimous in both houses of Congress, and therefore it is veto proof. If Donald Trump refuses to sign it and he vetoes it, then that sends sort of a message to the survivors as well as to the people that he would be protecting if he were to veto the bill. But that in that case, what happens is that the bill goes back to Congress, which would be inconsistent with him saying he would release the Epstein files. But in this instance, you sort of war game and you think that he's going to tell them to release the files and Pam Bondi is going to release the files. Is it that easy and quick? Is it, and if so, is it because Donald Trump's name and references have already been redacted over the last 10 months since Donald Trump took office and since Pam Bondi started reviewing the Epstein files? And if that is the case, then we may see redactions where we may venture to guess who these people are, but not really figure out who these people are because their names and references are heavily redacted. Or Donald Trump goes back on his word and doesn't sign it and goes back to Congress, and Congress then is left with either repassing the bill or letting it die. If it repasses it, it has to pass it with the same amount of two-thirds majority of each chamber of Congress, and then it is veto proof, and then it is Congress ordering the executive without Donald Trump's signature and therefore assent to release the files. Is Donald Trump likely to release the files in that case? Not really. If he first says yes, then says no, and he's going to say yes again, maybe that would be one way to delay the whole process. And so we are, and what if Donald Trump says, no, I'm not going to listen to the law. It's going to go up in the courts and it's going to stay in the Supreme Court and it's going to be mulled over in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is just going to let it sort of broil and bake while, the survivors are not getting accountability. That is the focus. That needs to be the focus of this whole charade. Survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and survivors of other demonic people who are rich and influential, who took advantage of kids, little girls, they need to be held accountable. And these girls, these survivors who are now women, deserve to be heard, they deserve their story to be told, and they deserve to be believed. They need to have the government's support in getting to that point. If the government doesn't support them, if Donald Trump goes back on his word again, then the only solution will be for the survivors to come up with a list of names themselves and then hand it over to congressional leaders who can then take turns reading it on the House and Senate floor so as to shield any of these survivors from legal liability by way of the speech or debate clause. That still remains a viable, foolproof way of getting this information out. But it may all not be necessary if Donald Trump signs this bill now, turns it into law, and orders Pam Bondi, and Pam Bondi immediately says, yes, sir, I'm going to release it, and then releases it. Or Pam Bondi can say, because they are now opening investigations into other people in the Epstein files, Democrats like Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, and whoever else that they can think of, any names, I'm sure they're going to come up with more. And Pam Bondi can say, sir, thank you for this. I will release it as soon as we are done with this investigation because we have opened new investigations and we cannot release evidence which is relevant and pertinent to ongoing criminal investigations. We are not complying with this order and this law. We'll just do it after we are done investigating and after we are done deciding whether or not to bring charges on these people. And that investigation can go on for quite a while. So these are all the possibilities of what could happen. And I just wanted to come out here and say that to you. And I also wanted to remind you to keep your focus on the survivors and the survivors' stories. And I have in the reference box put Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girls purchase page on Penguin on in the references section, so you can purchase her book and read the story of a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein and understand why it is necessary for these survivors who are alive and speaking out to get justice and get their time to be heard and believed. With that said, thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.